I'm going to kick off with a rundown on the story of William Palmer, who was christened the Prince of Poisoners. The case was a sensation in its time. Charles Dickens said, "The recent trial of the greatest villain that ever stood in the Old Bailey dock has produced the usual descriptions inseparable from such occasions. The public has read from day to day of the murderer's complete self-possession, of his constant coolness, of his profound composure, of his perfect equanimity." Later, George Orwell commented in The Decline of the English Murder, "Our great period in murder seems to have been between roughly 1850 and 1925, and the murderers whose reputation has stood the test of time are the following." And the first murderer on his list of favourites is Dr. Palmer of Rugeley. And small wonder. According to Rugeley legend and the many retellings of the story, Palmer was a cold-hearted killer who poisoned a man simply in order to win a drinking contest, robbed his friend Leonard Bladen of his race winnings and poisoned him, poisoned his own children, Elizabeth, Frank, Henry and John, poisoned his wife Anne after taking out an insurance policy on her, plied his alcoholic brother Walter with drink after taking out insurance on him, then took out insurance on a local farmer called George Bate with the intention of cashing in after killing him, then poisoned his illegitimate son Alfred, the product of an affair with his servant, and finally administered a fatal dose of strychnine to his friend John Cook. But what if I were to tell you that it's perfectly possible that none of this is true? Palmer was only ever tried for one murder, that of his friend and business partner John Cook. No other accusation against him was ever examined in a court of law, and as we'll see, that particular trial was riddled with irregularities, and would probably never have happened at all were it not for a relentless vendetta carried out by the stepfather of the victim, an ex-merchant by the name of William Vernon Stevens. The trial featured Dr. Alfred Swain Taylor, the most distinguished toxicologist of the day, but since no trace of poison was found in Cook's body, the forensic evidence was inconclusive, with rival professionals giving different opinions. So it was the evidence of Elizabeth Mills, a chambermaid at the hotel in which Cook died, that actually put the rope around Palmer's neck. On Thursday the 15th of November, it came to the Talbot Arms. It came between 9 and 10 o'clock at night. The prisoner was with him. Cook went to bed at 10:30 o'clock. He said he was poorly. About 12 o'clock on the following day, I took him some hot water, and he went out about 1 o'clock. He came back about 10 o'clock in the evening. In about half an hour he went to bed. I asked him if he felt any worse than when he went out in the morning. He said he didn't. He said that he had been dining with Palmer. I saw no more of him that night. On Saturday morning, about 8 o'clock, I saw Palmer at the Talbot Arms. Palmer ordered a cup of coffee for Mr. Cook. I gave it to Cook in the bedroom, but I didn't see him drink it. Afterwards, I went upstairs and found the coffee in the chamber utensil. According to the evidence of Mills, Palmer continued to supply food and drink to the unfortunate Mr. Cook. I saw Palmer go in and out of Cook's room perhaps 4 or 5 times on that Saturday. I heard Palmer tell Cook that he would send him over some broth. Later I met Palmer going upstairs towards Cook's room. He asked if Mr. Cook had had his broth. I told him that it came, but that he refused to take it, saying it would not stay on his stomach. Palmer said that Mr. Cook must have it. I fetched it and took it into Cook's room. About an hour or two afterwards I've gone up to Mr. Cook's room again and found that the broth had been vomited. But it was the symptoms described by Elizabeth Mills that were really crucial to the case, symptoms that convinced the greatest toxicologist of his age, Dr. Alfred Swain Taylor, of Palmer's guilt. It was on this basis that he stated the cause of death as tetanus due to strychnine. The meaning of the word tetanus has shifted since then. At that time, it just meant the range of extreme symptoms that we now associate with the actual disease. Here's how Mills described John Cook's horrific end. As soon as I entered the room, I found him sitting up in bed. I found the pillow upon the floor. I picked up the pillow and asked him if he would lay down his head. At that time, he was sitting up and beating the bedclothes with both arms and hands stretched out. He said, "I cannot lie down. I shall suffocate if I do. Oh, fetch Mr. Palmer." His body, his hands and neck were moving, then a sort of jumping or jerking. His head was back. Sometimes he'd throw back his head upon the pillow and then would raise himself up again. This jumping and jerking was all over his body. He appeared to have great difficulty in breathing. The balls of both the eyes were much projected. It was difficult for him to speak. He was so short of breath. He screamed 3 or 4 times while I was in the room. He called aloud, "Murder!" twice. Dr. Palmer gave him a drop from a wine glass after giving him the pills. Cook, when he took the pills, said he could not swallow them. At Palmer's request, I gave Cook a teaspoonful of toast and water, which he took. When I gave it to him from the spoon, his body was then jerking and jumping. He snapped at the spoon like that, with his head and neck, and the spoon was fast between his teeth. It was difficult to get it away. He seemed to bite it very hard. When this was going on, the water went down his throat and washed the pills down. Mr. Palmer then handed in the draught from the wine glass. It was something liquid, and the wine glass was 3 parts full with a liquid of dark, heavy-looking stuff. Cook drank it. He snapped at the glass just the same as he did at the spoon. He swallowed the liquid, which was vomited up immediately. Palmer said that he hoped the pills were not returned, and he searched for the pills with a quill. He said, "I cannot find the pills." This account of Cook's horrific symptoms must have roused a good deal of sympathy for the alleged victim, with a corresponding fireball of animus toward the diminutive figure in the dock. But that wasn't the end of Elizabeth Mill's testimony. Her second stint in court throws interesting light on her earlier claims. After Cook's death, I stayed at the Talbot Inn till the day after Christmas. I then went to my home in Potteries, Shelton. Since then I've been in service in Dolly's Hotel, Paternoster Row, London. About a week after I came to London, I saw Mr. Stevens, the stepfather of Cook, about 6 or 7 times. 2 or 3 times I saw him alone. At other times, perhaps Mr. Dewhurst, the landlady of the inn, or Miss Dewhurst was there. It was not always about Mr. Cook's death that he spoke to me. He would merely call to see how I liked London and whether I was well in health and all that. What the hell is going on here? She's now working in a swanky London hotel frequented by the gentry, and she's been visited by the stepfather of John Parsons Cook 6 or 7 times? And the reason he came to see her was to ask her how she liked London. Defence counsel She pointed out the incongruity of all this. When he asked her what they spoke about, Mills merely said, I know he asked me how I was." This, understandably, grew gales of laughter from the court. She tried again to explain herself. "I had some conversation with him at the Talbot Inn just before the funeral. I cannot really remember what he spoke about beyond Mr. Cook's death. During the time I was at Dolly's Hotel, I never received a farthing from him, and he never made me any promise to get me a place." Anyone think, like me, that the lady doth protest too much? She went on. "The last time I saw him out of court was on Tuesday last at Dolly's Hotel. He never spoke to me about Mr. Cook's death. When I saw him at that time, there were other people present, including Lavinia Barnes, Mr. Gardner, and Mr. Hatton, the Chief Officer of Police in Staffordshire." Allow me to elucidate here. Lavinia Barnes worked with Mills at the Talbot Inn. Mr. Gardner was Stephen's solicitor, and yes, the Chief Constable of Staffordshire also dropped in for a chat, presumably to ask her how she liked London. Mr. She was, not unnaturally, curious about what they talked about. Then, as now, coaching a witness is absolutely not allowed. From Elizabeth Mill's protestations, it's obvious that she'd been told to deny any suggestion that she'd been told what to say in her testimony. Mr. She pressed her for details of what they had talked about. I cannot say what the talk was all about. Mr. Cook's death might have been mentioned. I dare say it was. I will undertake to say that there were other subjects of conversation between us, besides the subject of Cook's death. I do not wish to mention what they were. They did not, so far as I heard, talk about the evidence I was to give. They did not ask me what I could prove, nor they didn't read out my depositions put before the coroner to me. There was nothing read to me from a newspaper or anything else. Mr. Stevens never at any previous interview read anything from a newspaper to me. He never talked to me about the symptoms which Mr. Cook exhibited before his death. Before last Tuesday, I had seen Mr. Hatton about twice. I saw him once at Dolly's when he dined there, and I did not wait upon him. I merely saw him there. He might have talked about Mr. Cook's death, but I cannot remember. I have seen Mr. Gardner there 3 or 4 times since Mr. Cook's death. It's fairly obvious at this stage that Mills had been extensively briefed by Cook's stepfather, Mr. William Vernon Stevens, and also by the Staffordshire Chief Constable about what to say during the hearing. The next bit needs a bit of explanation. It refers to a case in which a Leeds man had been charged with poisoning his wife with strychnine, which was a fairly novel poison at the time, meaning that the symptoms of strychnine poisoning were not widely known. The newspaper reports went into great detail about the wife's horrific suffering during her death throes, symptoms that bore an uncanny resemblance to those described by Elizabeth Mills in her account of Cook's death. Had she perhaps been given some handy clues about some of the details that it might be helpful for her to mention in court? I may have heard something spoken of a case that lately occurred at Leeds of a lady who was said to have been poisoned by her husband, but I didn't read it. It was not mentioned to me by Mr. Stevens, nor by Mr. Gardner, nor by Mr. Hatton. Were you told, when you heard of it, what the symptoms of Mrs. Dove were? I think not. I merely heard that there had been strychnine used at Leeds. Another strychnine case. Were the symptoms of strychnine ever mentioned to you by anyone? No. When and by whom did you first use the expression twitching, which you mentioned so repeatedly yesterday? To the coroner I did. If I did not mention twitching, I mentioned something to the same effect. I will not swear I used the word at the coroner's. I cannot remember when I first used the word twitching. I can't remember when I first used the word jerking to anybody. I will undertake to swear that it has never been used to me by anybody. We then come to another piece of testimony which seems to have magically emerged since the original inquest. You stated yesterday, said Mr. Shee, that on Sunday some broth was brought in a breakfast cup between 12 and 1 o'clock, that you took it up to Cook's bedroom, that you drank about 2 tablespoonfuls, that you were sick the whole afternoon and vomited till 5 o'clock. Did you state one word about that in your description before the coroner? It never occurred to me until 3 days afterwards. I understood you to say yesterday that Palmer came over about 8 o'clock and ordered a cup of coffee for Cook. Do you adhere to that? I cannot remember whether Palmer ordered it or not. If I said it yesterday, it's correct. But I can't remember whether Palmer ordered the coffee or not now. I will swear now that Palmer ordered the coffee, and I took it and gave it into Cook's hand, and Palmer was there. You swear to it now? Yes. You swear to it now? If that was what I stated yesterday, then I do not doubt it was correct. Is that your only reason for stating it to be correct? I believe it to be correct. You stated yesterday that you asked Cook on the Tuesday afternoon what he thought the cause of his illness was, and that he replied, "The pills which Palmer gave me at 10:30. Yes. Did you say that before the coroner? No. There was more of this. It wasn't just that she was cracking up under the intense pressure of the trial. That would be understandable. Her testimony clearly indicated that she and Lavinia Barnes had been systematically schooled, to the point where she could scarcely distinguish what had actually happened from what she had been told to say. The symptoms she described probably were gleaned, either directly or indirectly, from a lurid account of the Leeds murder in the popular press. And how was it that she had ended up working in a swanky hotel close to the Old Bailey and Stevenson's house? Had Stevenson arranged that? It's difficult to imagine how else it would have happened. And if Mills and Barnes were schooled, coached in coordinating their stories and repeating the right telling details, who's to say that other witnesses weren't also primed by Stevenson? Mr. Shee declared that he felt sure on a personal level that his client was innocent. It was not the custom to do this, and he was castigated for it, but that seems to have been his sincere opinion. But it was to no avail. Palmer was hanged, publicly, outside Stafford jail. He went to his death pleading his innocence, though his protestation seems equivocal. "I did not murder John Parsons Cook with strychnine," is what he said to the prison governor as he was led out to his death. And what the hell does that mean? We'll never know. All that's left of him is a death mask with telltale marks on the neck, and the whispers and rumours that circulate in the little Staffordshire town of Rugeley to this day.